Getting into aviation photography? Learn the basics. All right, welcome back to Photography After Hours. Cheers.
These beers keep refilling themselves.
Yes, they do.
All right, so we are here with Photography After Hours, and we are sponsored by PAC, the Photographers Adventure Club, who supports us with our endeavors here. And we'd like to let you know that they do meetups, photo walks, all kinds of cool stuff. Check it out on photoadvclub.com. So I'd like to introduce everyone. We have our resident photographer, aviation expert, pilot.
There you have it.
He does street photography and a variety of different types of photography that the rest of us don't do.
Which is totally irrelevant to aviation.
And I get to fly airplanes.
And he flies airplanes.
Also, I'd like to make a quick post-mortem as long as we're talking about aviation. Bob the Fly has deceased.
Oh, did you guys kill him while I was gone?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Sorry.
We have a moment of silence.
Moment of silence for Bob
yes.
the Fly.
Okay, enough of that.
Okay.
All right, so
fellow aviators, so a little respect.
so we're moving on to Susie Taylor, also a pilot out there.
That's true.
Yes.
Anything to say?
Nope, glad to be here. And I never turn down an opportunity to talk aviation, anything that flies.
Except Bob.
Except for Bob.
We talked quite a bit about Bob, so.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And we have Robert Turchik back here as our special guest for this month, and welcome. And are you a pilot as well, or are you just enthusiastic?
I am a very enthusiastic aviation lover. Actually not former, I'm an Air Force brat. So I've hung around airplanes since I was old enough to remember them.
Cool.
And never lost the passion.
Awesome. So we find, if you look up your Facebook, you have pictures of awesome photography all the time. And we're going to try to peek into your mind a little bit of how you go out and get these pictures with ease.
With ease.
Or with some degree
in
of
15 minutes or
difficulty.
less.
15 minutes or less. Well, we were kind of hashing out what we wanted to really cover here. And I think the one thing that we'll throw out the window, because it's a very advanced, very specific topic, is the air-to-air stuff. So if you look at my page and you see shots of planes that cannot be taken from the ground, they have to be air-to-air, that's a whole different topic. I think covering here a little bit about, if you're at an air show, for instance, or you go to an open house at an airport, which are really common. They happen quite frequently around the area, actually all over the country, because this is nationwide.
Yeah.
It's a really fun thing, and it's a challenge. It's not your typical photography. One of my kind of mantras is I like action things that move, and especially things that fly. Except Bob. So it's a different set of techniques.
Drones.
Yeah. Yes. It's a different set of techniques, and the same basic tools, but different techniques from doing portraits or sports, or it's more akin to sports. Or like action wildlife, anything that moves. It requires just a different set of skills to do it right.
So when you're first getting into this, you think, hey, I have a $200 300 millimeter lens that should be good, and you find out very quickly that stuff doesn't always work for what you need. So what kind of equipment can you suggest for people that are like enthusiastic about it and have the passion, the drive to get out there and show up to an air show and want to, shoot on the line with everyone else with these huge telephotos? It's kind of like the Super Bowl. You see people out there with these big ones, and if you come up with your little camera, can you get those shots, or can you get similar shots?
And unlike at the Super Bowl, where you don't have a rat's chance to get down on the sideline with those sports photographers, just about anybody at an air show does have the ability to get right up there against the flag tape watching the demonstration shows and, everybody, all the aerobatic demonstrations and stuff going by. So you're going to be shoulder to shoulder to the people with the really high dollar equipment. What are your recommendations for the everyday, kind of DSLR user and the range of lenses that we kind of have at our common disposal?
Okay. I'm going to back up for a second because I went through this probably about 3 years ago with my son, who's now 9 years old. So he was 6 at the time. And I ended up getting him a point and shoot Fuji that basically, it's a full-size camera. The lens equivalent to my camera went out to 1,000 millimeters. And it was a $150 camera. Well, guess what?
So-called optical zoom.
Well, no, it was not optical.
It wasn't?
It was.
Well,
I'm sorry.
no,
it was optical. It was
zoom,
not digital. Not
zoom,
digital. And that's a very important thing. Digital zoom, you'll never get good shots with it. But okay, yeah, he's not using a high frame rate, super quality lens, but good grief, he brought back handfuls of pictures from every air show that I took. And the thing is, like, my maximum lens length is 700 millimeters. He's at 1,000, and he's getting some pretty darn good shots that I can't get.
Tight crops and getting
tight in on the airplanes, flying by. And all it really took, he's not used to adjusting all the settings and stuff. So I would set up the camera for him, and I'm like, just shoot, and he'd frame it up and
shoot it. Yeah.
Shoot it, and that's all it really takes is a camera with a decent zoom and the practice.
Anticipating where the plane's going to be when your shutter opens.
Yeah, and that's with the burst rates, you can get away with a lot more. And since then, my son has taken over one of my other DSLRs, which does like a 7 frames a second. Well, he'll fill up a card in like an hour, which he's just holding down the button. But once again, he's used to panning and he's used to following airplanes in motion, and he brings back stuff. The settings that I use for him are pretty forgiving, and that's one of the things to consider. When you look at 2 airplane photos, and one looks like the thing's moving like 1,000 miles an hour, and total action shot, and then you look at another one, same plane, and the prop might be stopped, and there's no motion in the picture. Well, there's a major difference in the settings that were used there. Aviation photography, to me, when a plane is in motion, is about motion blur. And getting motion blur requires slow shutter speeds. Now, there's kind of a game that we all play. It's like, limbo, shutter speed limbo, how low can you go? And there's guys out there that can shoot, 1/15 handheld and get razor sharp images.
Now, with the big lenses, are you using a monopod or anything?
Nope.
No?
Too restrictive.
Too restrictive.
Yeah.
You
There's
can't
guys.
peel it back really then, right?
Yeah, and planes, they tend to move all over the place. Monopods to me, and if I am following something panning, I always tend to trip over.
Well, the other thing is how you catch it, because if it's coming down on the horizon from here, it's not moving that much, even though it's coming at you at a high rate of speed. As far as the camera can tell, it's moving about like this. But when it goes past you, it's just like, poof. And so right here, you probably are more likely to freeze it than right here.
Yeah, and with the slower shutter speeds, obviously, it's just practice.
It's like a golf swing.
It is.
Can someone practice, like go out to the highway and shoot
absolutely.
cars and just try to get the front frozen and the grill and everything like that, where instead of even going, cars are a dime a dozen, so you could sit
prepare
on the road.
for the air show with some cars.
I actually use my kids on bicycles.
There you go.
And I'll practice panning to make sure that I'm smooth and whatnot. And I've actually gotten down to 1/20th and gotten a sharp kid on a bicycle, and the wheels are completely gone, the background is completely gone, but he's there, and it's fantastic practice, and that's really the key.
Now, have you found that generally you can curl more now, and your upper body?
My left arm,
Right.
left arm is pretty.
So it's pretty good exercise too. So
Yeah, Yeah.
Those 750 millimeter lenses cost more than my truck. Yeah,
Well, and you know, that's the thing is
almost way more than my truck.
you know, the big lenses, they are for a certain level of photography. I mean, it's, you know, as a video person, I look at the sports lenses, you know, at a baseball stadium, and you know, it's as long as this coffee table and costs, you know, $300,000. And I look at it and go, I want that, but I can't. So there's,
heavy.
What do you find about the difference in image quality versus, let's say you buy an 800 millimeter lens, you know, fixed, versus buying a 400 with the 2x tele-extender? How much are you really losing in image quality by using the tele-extender, since you're pretty much in bright light anyway, so you're stopped down?
yeah, your lens, the light is kind of irrelevant if you're at a decent, you know, day at an air show or whatever. The extenders, it really varies from lens to lens. I'm fortunate enough to have like the Mark II Canon, you know, big glass. They don't really see the teleconverters. It's very transparent. I can't tell if I've got the 1.4 or the 2.0, you know, on my 500. It's just that good a glass. Now,
great.
when I had a Mark I 70-200, and you know, this is when I was first getting into it, and that 70-200 was actually an f4, so it was a $600 lens. I stuck a 2x on it, and you know, it was like,
You're losing at least
this
a
is
stop and a half a light.
it goes from f4 to f8
Gotcha.
as the
Yeah,
minimum.
even more.
Well, for example, the new Canon 100-400, you know, with the 2x on it, I mean,
Terrible.
that is a pretty inexpensive proposition compared to buying an 800 millimeter lens.
Yeah,
and I'm just kind of wondering what the
It's
difference in the quality would be.
you're not, if it's Mark I 100-400, you're probably not going to be happy.
I got rid of mine. I had that set up, and I got rid of the 2.0. I kept the 1.4 extender, but I got rid of 2.0 and I got rid of that lens. It was just, everything looked like I had a screen door in front of it. It was very like soft, and it was very cloudy looking. It just didn't seem like it was sharp.
Yeah, it had a
and
gray cast.
like a gray cast to it. It was just not a great lens, and you lose your autofocus on it too. So if you're trying to shoot stuff that's fast, you have no autofocus. So like,
I'll tell you a trick with that. That was on a couple of cameras, and since then the firmware updates have taken care of that. So
the autofocus.
yeah, and it was a function of
I
the
had a
aperture.
70.
Yep.
2 times extender with the 100-400.
Yeah, but I mean, the new variant of it, I think, works
The
a lot
new one I
better
heard is
than
a
the
lot
old
better.
one.
The
Lot
version
better.
2.
But a lot of people say they like the 1.4, but they don't really like the 2X very much.
And that varies once again from lens to lens. The 2.0 for me works incredibly well on my 70-200 Mark II. Works really well on my 300-8 Mark II, and it works really well on my 500 Mark II.
Yeah.
The other lenses, and there's other guys out there that I've seen with the Mark I big glass, and the big glass is just bottom line expensive for a reason. It works really well on that.
Well, and heavy to
lets
carry
things
around
so
all
much
day when you're traipsing through the hot sun. So.
Unless you have a Black Rapid dual strap, you know, you can counterbalance it.
I have one of those, but or you get someone to carry your stuff. Be like, here, like a Sherpa.
We've actually started using carts, believe it or not. So
You talked for a moment about motion and that kind of thing. Talk a little bit about shutter speed and especially how that is going to influence the propeller motion, things like that.
yeah, the one thing that just annoys the heck out of any aviation buff is a stopped prop. It's like the plane's dead stick. It's going in. It's going to crash.
It's going to fall.
So
It doesn't tell the story, you know. It's
it
like taking a
doesn't.
picture of NASCAR and it's not moving or blurred. Then might as well have taken. Bob is back.
Well, and
You
also
might as well have
visually,
taken it like parked.
Bob's friend.
Where he went.
In any case,
that's Murray. Mary, go sit over there.
I want a Reuben
Well, because
sandwich
visually
now.
you see a disc, you know, when you're watching it, and so that's really what you want to capture.
and like for instance, when I was teaching my son how to work this, getting into the DSLR, I had a lot more control over the settings, obviously. I started him at 1/160th shutter speed. And you have to adjust the other settings to keep that. Now, one of the secrets that I will divulge is shooting in shutter priority mode. So your shutter remains constant all the time, 1/160th.
So you're consistent there.
Yeah, it is a good starting point for just about anything out there prop wise. It'll get you a little bit of blur on the slowest props, and on stuff like a turbine, it'll get you full discs. But it's very forgiving. If you aren't smooth with a pan, it's still fast enough that it'll catch some pretty sharp stuff. Now, going into that further, when I mentioned a slow prop versus a fast prop, once again, with the warbirds, the stuff that people love taking pictures of, like a P-51 or a Corsair, the slower you can go, the better. I find myself shooting those at 1/60th a lot, and
big slow props.
Slow props.
They're geared down just because tip speeds go supersonic at some point, and so they're down to about 1,000 RPM full bore.
Well, and you can hear you can hear them when they're coming. They have a lower pitch. And stuff like that, and that's
big blades slap in the air.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, going back to when you said your son had gotten to the DSLR and started shooting and filling the cards up, is it the same as what sports photographers do at the Super Bowl and stuff? And are you shooting in JPEG, or are you shooting in RAW, or both?
I don't think I've ever shot in JPEG.
So you're still shooting in RAW even with the high frame rate, because most of the cameras are rated in JPEG for that high frame rate that you get, like a 1DX.
For like burst.
For burst.
Yeah.
So,
burst rate.
But so you're still doing it in RAW, so you have the
Still
full
doing it in
data.
RAW.
Okay, so does it time out after a while? 'Cause I know our friend Michael will test all these cameras, and he'll shoot them and max them out. He'll just hold it down, and he'll have someone run back and forth, and it's like click, 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 and it goes good. She runs to one cone. As she's halfway back from the other one, it's like click, 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 and it just bogs down.
Yeah, and it varies camera to camera. I have 1DX, and I have very, very fast cards in it. I can do about 20 to 22 at
frames.
And I actually toned down the 1DX. 12 frames a second in RAW is the max speed. I think 14 in JPEG. I tone it down to 10.
Okay.
10 is a good happy medium where you're not going to like kill a card, buffer wise.
Well, you're not getting facial expressions on an airplane. I mean, it's just pretty much trying to hit a certain position, And
anticipating the moment and
and some of the shots I'll send you, like the Blue Angels crossing.
Yep.
You can't get that unless you're
have to shoot
really
that in
lucky.
burst.
Really lucky, or you're just
Firing away.
Firing away. The slower cameras, and actually I can tell you one secret about the 5D Mark III. Don't put your SD card in it if you want to shoot high frame rate.
I heard it's a slower technology on that for some reason.
It actually defaults to the lowest common denominator. So even though you have a compact flash that's much, much faster than the SD card, it defaults to the SD.
it's not going to go faster than its slowest card.
Yep.
Interesting. Cool.
So
well, we'll get some great pictures up here and show it off and everything. And
Cool.
appreciate you coming out.
no problem.
So leave your comments below. And this was Photography After Hours. Good luck out there. Get some good pictures.